And good evening. Welcome to the WorldviewTube Washington Report for this evening, June 4th, 2025. Glad you are with us tonight. A lot going on in the news today. Well, there is every day, pretty much. Today, President Putin and President Trump had a rather lengthy conversation, 70 some odd minutes. We'll talk about what that was about, because he put out a tweet about it. A crazy Biden judge says that Trump administration, that flag's flowing back there, Dolly. What are you doing? The Trump administration, she's waving. My dog's a flag-waving dog. Look at her, Logan. She's waving the flag. She's making it wave like that. How many of you guys have a dog that's trained to wave the flag? Well, we do. Our studio dog, Dolly, is trained to wave the flag. That's a pretty good trick I taught her there, isn't it, Logan? Uh-huh. Yep. All right, joining me is Jim Papp. Jim, do you have a flag-waving dog? Because I do. Whoa!
I don't. Ours sadly passed away about a year and a half ago, but Logan, she was very patriotic, I can guarantee you.
Well, that's good. Well, she grabbed the flag. We better put the flag back up. I don't know if she's ever going to come back in the studio after that, Logan. I'm not sure she will ever come back in here again. She just pulled it over on herself. Oh, my word. What a mess is that? All right. Well, there you go. That's live television for you. We got it all put back together, didn't we? Yeah, good luck with that one, Logan. Let's see. Donald Trump put out a tweet today. Over 70-minute talk on with Putin. Let's see. What did he say here? He said, just finished speaking by telephone with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. The call lasted approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. We discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine and also various attacks that have been taking place by both sides. I'm sorry, you guys are distracting me in there. It was a good conversation, but not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say very strongly that we will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields. We also discussed Iran and the fact that time is running out on Iran's decision pertaining to nuclear weapons, which must be made quickly. I stated to President Putin that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Well, I'm sorry. I think that train's already left the station. I think they've already got one. The question is how many. But there you go. What's your response to that tonight, Jim?
Listen, I'm no fan of Vladimir Putin, not at all. I'm personally convinced that we're at this stage right now because of Zelensky's arrogance when Donald Trump first came into office. He could have gotten a deal that would have been, or so it seemed, that would have been just as good as any deal he would have ever gotten. And he spouted off his mouth in the White House. I frankly just, neither Putin nor Zelensky are honest actors, to be candid. And Putin says he's going to respond. I mean, we're in a mess. And I think it's largely because of Biden policy prior to Trump coming in for the last 4 years of weakness on the international stage. And then empowering Zelensky with an unlimited budget from us. I mean, do you know that during the Biden administration that Ukraine was the world's fourth largest military in terms of dollars in the world? I mean, it's absolutely nuts. We just let this thing get way out of control, and Donald Trump's doing the best he can to bring it back in order. And by the way, I mean, I have to give credit to Ukraine for that attack to the extent that they were able to pull it off. And I think it tells us a whole lot about the future of war that we'd better be concerned with. And so anyway, lessons learned, I guess.
Well, I'll tell you, I guess America is warning some folks in American assets in Ukraine. They better look out because Putin is going to strike back. Question is how hard.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to withhold attacks on Kiev this time. I mean, listen, at this stage, a successful attack like that did the kind of damage that it did, there's going to be no holds barred. Kiev has had some serious strikes on it, but not way too serious by comparison to what Russia is capable of. And, you know, the whirlwind's coming.
Yeah, the whirlwind is coming. Let's see, what else do we got today from Trump? ADP numbers are out. ADP is the payroll company, for those who don't know. Too late. Powell must now lower the rate. He is unbelievable. Europe has lowered 9 times. Yeah, he appointed Powell, though, so I guess he can't complain too much.
Well, he didn't appoint him. He renewed him.
Oh, he renewed him. Okay.
Yeah. So,
but he could have chosen someone else.
He could have. Yeah, he could have gotten.
He reappointed him.
Yeah, that's right. But one of the reasons he did was because Powell was keeping the rates artificially low at the time. And I'm not a big fan of a massive rate reduction. You know, we're at historically low rates right now. We've had a low rate, an uber low rate policy this century, but prior to 2000, a 4% rate was the bottom floor for some time. So there probably is an argument for a little bit of a rate reduction, to be candid. I think the numbers do show it. You're going to have pushback if the second quarter GDP numbers show negative again, which is possible, or show very low. But I don't like the GDP number in general. I'm no professional economist, but I think I've studied economics enough to rationally make the point, as economist Peter St. Onge of the Heritage Foundation has, that there is, when you take out all the government money from the last GDP report, which had us down 0.2%, there was about a 4.5% growth in the normal economy, the non-government economy, during that period as well. And that's the thing, they roll in all the government spending numbers into the GDP number, and when you've got government growing crazy, you can have the GDP number growing as well, and make the argument, look at how we're making the economy grow. And it just, that the government does not grow the economy at all. There's nothing that it does that makes the economy expand. What makes it expand is less regulation and less government spending, because government spending leads to inflation inevitably. And that's what the Fed does. So we may be in a deflationary pace right now, which it cuts both ways, positively and negatively. But no, I mean, I think a lower interest rate would be in order. I wouldn't go as far down probably as Donald Trump would like him to go, but I think he does need to do a rate change. And
Tiananmen Square, didn't that happen on June 4th, 1989?
It surely did.
We're on the anniversary of that. Let me show you some video footage from that day. Wow. You remember that day?
I vividly, actually.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened to that man. And I was searching it earlier. There are rumors about what might have happened. I think we see that he was physically removed there right at the end of the video. As you can see, he may not have survived that day. What's behind that picture are the tens of thousands who were killed during that uprising. And the ruthless Chinese Communist Party destroyed a movement for freedom. Then they should have listened to it. And to be candid, they could potentially, in terms of GDP, already be the largest country in GDP on earth had they taken an economic freedom and political freedom path that the people who died on that day were seeking to bring about. They did have some success because of our flawed policy of giving them most favored nation status just about 10 years after that was totally uncalled for and was with the knowledge of what happened at Tiananmen Square, which was a massacre. And yet we went ahead and gave them most favored nation status under the stupid notion that doing so would lead to political liberty ultimately. And I remember arguing with people, conservatives, that really believed that would be brought about. And obviously that's not the case right now. They went in and savaged Hong Kong. They killed people in Hong Kong. We probably don't even know the numbers during the Hong Kong uprisings. And then they ultimately broke the treaty and took it over. There's no freedom in Hong Kong now. They are threatening Taiwan right now. The Chinese Communist Party is a ruthless death cult, frankly, if they see any resistance against them. Don't forget that there are social scores on the people of that country, and if you don't do what is demanded of the Communist Party, then you will have your ability to travel restricted, your ability to make money restricted, and be able to make a living for your family. I mean, it's a ruthless regime. Whatever they try to put on top of it to try to say anything good about themselves, you always got to remember Tiananmen Square when tens of thousands of people were killed.
35 years ago today, and now it's 36 years ago because this was last year. So now 36 years ago. On June 4th, 1989, the Chinese Communist Party launched a brutal crackdown against a student-led protest taking place within Tiananmen Square in the capital city of Beijing. During the crackdown, between 2,600 and 10,000 protesters were killed by Chinese soldiers utilizing tanks, rifles, and bayonets, with several bodies being unidentifiable due to them being run over multiple times by armored vehicles. To this day, the Chinese government continues to deny the existence of the massacre.
And that you hear numbers 2,600 to 10,000. It was tens of thousands. You are never going to be able to validate the actual numbers of what took place, particularly since they still don't admit that it happened to this day. And by the way, how similar is this? Maybe with a less lethal aspect to itself, but how similar is that to mainstream media today, where Joe Biden in front of our faces was incapable of performing the duties of office, and yet they said that he was his best ever, as Joe Scarborough said. I mean, this kind of propaganda leads to majorly negative outcomes in societies. And our media, which I'm not claiming to be violent in the particular manner that the Communist Party is, that kind of propaganda just leads to these sorts of outcome. Ultimately, that's the logical conclusion of it. And that's why we need to be fighting for liberty and freedom in this country as well, so we can remain a light in that regard to all the world.
Here's one of the pictures coming out of there. And you know, they just wanted, I turned away. Did we show it, guys? And they just wanted freedom. They just want to be free. You know what really bothers me is that these Chinese students are not represented in the minds and the hearts of many Americans. There are so many Americans that would never lay down their life for freedom anymore. It's like Noah Harari said, we just keep them busy, drugged up in video games. There are a lot of Americans if and when faced with a totalitarian government like the CCP in our country, they would never lay down their lives.
I think you're absolutely correct about that. We have a contingent, definitely, of 30 to 40% of people in this country who still rabidly support the Democrat Party and have no sense of what the American ideal is about. Mm-hmm. In some cases, just because they're craven and cruel in their humanity, but others that are young people who have been taught that the 1619 Project is a more accurate way to look at American history. And it's a farce, even with the stains and scars of parts of our history, particularly as it relates to slavery. There is no place on earth that has ever had more freedom than we've been able to provide, that also brought prosperity and goodness in culture to people. And in fact, related to the 1619 Project, the Founding Fathers, they put a time bomb on slavery intentionally in the constitutional construct. And it did play out, however messy that process was, it did play out. We had a heart that desired to grant the human heart freedom. And when Jefferson wrote that all humans are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, he was even thinking of his slaves too. I mean, apparently he was having a love affair with one of his slaves. Like, he knew they were human beings. And yes, is it rancid and weird when you think about it from today's mindset? Sure, that's a very odd, weird thing. But that is sincerely what the majority of the Founding Fathers believed. They knew that this slavery thing had to go away. But what has happened in the interim, until the advent of Barack Obama, is that we grew as a culture and a bastion of freedom, even with our problems, that people admired all over the world. I believe that most of our worst problems that exist in our culture today are directly relatable to Barack Obama. There are some other strains from before his time, but he's the one who weaponized our federal government, that expanded our deep state culture in the government, and he extracted people with a conservative mindset out of the military, out of the FBI. He began that process, and it just went on steroids with Joe Biden, and it was the reason why Donald Trump went what he went through in his first administration. That was directly relatable to Barack Obama. We can rebuild freedom in this country if we have the courage to do so, and I'm hopeful because most Americans tend to be that way. You say people wouldn't die for that, and I agree with you. A lot wouldn't. A lot wouldn't in China then. You only had tens of thousands in a country of 1 billion people. But there still is a core in this country, as there was then, of people who are willing to die and stand up for freedom, just evidenced by the election last year, in my opinion.
I think you're right. Let's go to Congressman Nunn of Iowa. He held a press conference. I think this was yesterday. Here we go.
Today, Kash Patel, the head of the director of the FBI, highlighted multiple individuals who came into the United States perpetrated by communist China to enact biowarfare on the United States. Agroterrorism, as it's called, using students to leverage their research here in the United States against U.S. crops. Now, I'm just a farm kid from Iowa, but we have seen this time and time again. As an intelligence officer, and then as a counterintelligence officer who operated inside China, I saw this firsthand. But I saw it first in the farm fields of Iowa, where Chinese operatives came to the United States to literally steal corn out of the ground to thieve our intellectual property. Today, the Chinese Communist government uses that to steal the intellectual property of thousands of companies across the globe, including 3 major cyber attacks here on the United States. What this committee does is a reflection of what these individuals have been doing for decades, standing up and calling out China at every step. But the good news is there is a bright future, both for America and for the people of China. The bravery that was shown 36 years ago in the face of communist tanks is the same bravery that resides in China today. And it's the same fortitude we continue here in the United States. I know that working together, we have the opportunity not only to bring down communist China, but to bring up democratic-loving people around the world.
And of course, there you go. 2 CCP-tied students arrested here in America with what's really being called an agroterrorism weapon to go after our wheat fields, our wheat crops, which is all consistent with the 1999 unrestricted warfare document written by 2 Chinese communist colonels that we've been urging our audience to read for about 20 years now. And nothing is new. They spelled it all out in that document, and they're carrying it out.
And the Chinese culture, it's kind of a two-edged sword. One of the great things about Chinese culture, but when it comes to the CCP, one of the worst aspects of it is they are a very legacy-driven culture. There is in Chinese religion, or historically, an ancestor worship, but there you don't quite have the religious aspect of that as much now in every part of Chinese culture. But you do have this desire to carry things on generation to generation. We don't look multi-generationally as much in the United States as we used to. They do, and they're willing to wait 100 years to get done what they want to get done. And they have indoctrination systems that enhance that. We've had indoctrination systems in this country that have caused us some harm in our the monopoly of our public school system. But this is something that has to be addressed. It is clear and obvious that though we do not want to go to becoming a country where no one from other countries can invest in the United States to do business. We don't want that to happen. But what we are not outside of our bounds to restrict is to not allow governments from other countries to own assets in this United States, whether it's an economic asset or a physical asset or real property asset like some of this land. And we know the CCP has purchased this land, and we know it's for a purpose. It needs to be aggressively dealt with. We need to, and frankly, if there's any government ownership from the Chinese Communist Party in any of these lands, we take it away immediately. We put it back into the open market and let someone purchase it. Give it away for $1 to someone that's worthy. I don't care. But just that would be appropriate, because they are attempting to spy on us. And when you look at what happened with Ukraine's successful attack against Russia recently, where they had the drones inside houses that they had hidden there for 18 months, and then they just opened up the roofs and initiated the attack. Don't think that it's outside of the boundaries for the Chinese Communist Party to do something similar. At least that's a worthy threat to note, and then we need to take aggressive action against it. That's my opinion.
Well, we had drones, humongous drones, flying up and down outside of Washington, D.C. last summer, and some of the military guys were like, heck, I don't know what those are. It went on like 14, 15, 17 nights in a row, and we still don't know what was going on. And some of the biggest brass in the Pentagon didn't know what it was. So sleep well, America. Sleep well, America. We have people in the Pentagon still there who could never get to the bottom of who was flying drones in formation up and down a very sensitive part of our nation's capital. Found this picture. This is what is said to be often a very unseen picture of that day in Tiananmen Square back in 1989. All right. Elon Musk. We're getting reports now, sources, Wall Street Journal sources, saying that President Trump is saying that he thinks the relationship with Elon's been strained. Elon is out there really blasting the big, beautiful bill. So is Rand Paul and several others. I hear there are rumors they may be pulling in the Senate version and taking out a few $1 billion. What are you hearing?
Well, it's going to change out of the Senate and be sent back to the House. I think they have to use this legislative vehicle, so they'd have to amend it. But I'd have to double check on that. But I think they're restricted to that. But nonetheless, it is going to be different coming out of the Senate than it was out of the House. As to the rift between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, it's probably there. I mean, my spidey sense would say it's there. I don't detect yet that it's severe. And Elon Musk sacrificed a lot to do the Doge effort. I cannot, and I frankly think Donald Trump is a solid enough person to do this as well. I don't think that you can begrudge a guy who has sacrificed so much in terms of the attacks on Tesla dealerships, attacks on him personally and different things. And yet he gave his heart and his soul to try to save this country. To take a look at what Republicans are doing, he should be disgusted at them. Republicans could take a much tougher stance on this, and they're not. It's very simple to do. It's just very hard because of the political factors that they believe are important. But these guys and gals in the Republican Party in Washington, D.C., they don't understand. If they cut $3 trillion from the government, I don't think you actually can, by the way, in terms of our present obligations. But if you could cut $2 to $3 trillion out of the government, and there were some services that were gone, you'd have a few people complaining. But I can guarantee you, if they were to do that, they would be reelected in a landslide in 2026. You might have super majorities in the House and Senate if that happened. I think under any circumstances, while Republicans are working very hard to grab defeat out of the jaws of victory, I don't think there's any circumstance where they lose the Senate, or at least it's a very, very low possibility. It is possible, but very low. But they are seriously in problem in the House. They could enhance their chances if they would just make massive cuts.
Ex-White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre claims she's no longer a Democrat, while hyping memoir of broken Biden administration. Well, how convenient is that to get a little press for your book, right?
Yeah, that's what we call self-promotion. That's what we call media strategy to sell a bunch of books. She's no independent, my goodness.
Yeah. By the way, speaking, you guys probably saw that clip there of the guy that's accused of the terrorist attack in Boulder. The FBI is now saying that there are 15 identified victims of the Pearl Street Mall attack, plus one dog. The victims are 25 to 88 years old, 8 female and 7 male. And by the way, that 88-year-old is a Holocaust survivor. TheConservativeCaucus.org, TheConservativeCaucus.org. Jim Paff joins us each and every night. Jim, thanks as always for being here with us tonight on this solemn remembrance of Tiananmen Square, June 4th, 1989.
Have a great evening. Yeah, I'm glad that we memorialize that. It's a good time for remembrance. So
absolutely.
Good to see you, Brandon.
You too. Jim Paff checking in, TheConservativeCaucus.org. All right, stay tuned, if you would, for the Worldview Report. Brandon House Live tonight. I've got Annie Cyrus, Karen Kingston, Dr. Lana, Rob Lindstedt from China, Chad and Katie Brewer. Got a big lineup tonight. Hope you'll stay tuned. Text all your family and friends to tune in. WorldviewTube.com, our podcast, by the way, top 1% of downloaded in the nation. Take care.
You're watching WorldviewTube, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brandon House.
Tonight on the Worldview Report, 2 Chinese nationals are charged with smuggling a dangerous pathogen into the United States, claiming it was for the purpose of studying at the University of Michigan. Another biotech company has joined the race to normalize implantable brain chips. And MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell goes on trial in a defamation suit brought against him by a former employee of Dominion voting machines. President Trump's big, beautiful bill comes under fierce criticism, not just from the Democrats, but from members of his own party. And now the ranks of the opposition include his one-time close aide, Elon Musk. And after Ukraine's successful drone strike against Russian bombers, some are asking the question, What about America's military aircraft? Are they just as vulnerable? All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brandon House. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family, Worldview Report is your trusted source for vital and uncensored news. And now, here is Brandon House.
Good evening and welcome to the Worldview Report. I'm Brandon House. Leading off tonight, 2 Chinese nationals were charged in Michigan on Tuesday with allegedly smuggling a dangerous pathogen into the United States. They claim that it was for the purposes of studying at the University of Michigan. United States Attorney Jerome Gorgon Jr. reports that one of the individuals is 33 years of age. Another is 34. Both citizens of communist China. They were charged with conspiracy, smuggling goods into the United States, and false statements, as well as visa fraud. According to the complaint, one of them allegedly lied, but later admitted to smuggling a dangerous fungus into America through the Detroit Metropolitan Airport so that they could conduct research, well, with his girlfriend at a laboratory at the University of Michigan. The fungus, it is the most significant and destructive disease affecting wheat crops all over the world. That's according to the National Library of Medicine. The scientific literature classifies it as a potential biological weapon. According to the FBI, the complaint reports that one of them received